ordained for Father Gilbert Martinez of St. Mary's Catholic Church. He's a Paulist priest, and he will deliver the invocation. Lisa Crowley, please.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, those broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight? All ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Father Gil Martinez of St. Mary's for our invocation, please. Father Gil.
On this day, when we honor those who, as President Abraham Lincoln said, gave the last full measure of devotion to our nation, let us together and in the quiet sanctuaries of our own hearts name and call on God, the one whose power over us is great and gentle, firm and forgiving, holy and healing. O God, you who created us, who sustain us, who call us to live in peace, hear our prayer this day. Hear our prayer for all who have died, for those children and teachers at a Texas school, and all the victims of gun violence, whose hearts and hopes are known to you alone. Hear our prayer for those who put the welfare of others ahead of their own, and give us hearts as generous as theirs. Hear our prayer for those who gave their lives in the service of others, in the service of freedom, and in the service of justice, and accept the gift of their sacrifice. Help us create and make a world where we will lay down the arms of war and turn our swords into plowshares for a harvest of justice and peace. And help us rededicate ourselves to the unending work of bringing our country ever closer to that more perfect union for which they died. Comfort those who grieve the loss of their loved ones, and let their healing be the hope in our hearts. Hear our prayer this day, and in your mercy answer us, in the name of all that is holy. The peace of God be with you all. Amen.
Thank you, Father Gil Martinez. Everyone, please be seated. Timok Meza has been our director here at your Los Angeles National Cemetery since August 2020. Prior to this appointment, he was the assistant director of Riverside National Cemetery, and Timok has been part of the National Cemetery Administration since 2018. He is a U.S. Army veteran and a proud patriot. Please welcome the director of our magnificent Los Angeles National Cemetery and Columbarium, Mr. Timok Meza.
Thank you, Chaplain Duff, for that kind introduction. Congressman Ted Lieu, family and friends of those we remember today, America's veterans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to our Memorial Day ceremony here at the Los Angeles National Cemetery. I am privileged to be with you on this Memorial Day as we honor those heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice defending our country and our way of life. Your support for those who died in service of our country shows that you understand and appreciate why our nation sets aside this day in order to remember, honor, and salute our fallen service members. You understand the true meaning of Memorial Day. I feel especially fortunate to be here at this time as our country and this cemetery return to a traditional type of Memorial Day ceremony with members of the public on hand to honor our brave service members and to show support for our Gold Star families. We owe it to them to take out some time to pay our respects and reflect on the high cost of freedom. The pandemic changed so much in our lives for more than 2 years. One of the most unfortunate changes the National Cemetery Administration was required to make was suspending large public ceremonies at our cemeteries. For the past 2 years, we commemorated Memorial Day here at the cemetery as we've done every year since Memorial Day was established. We dedicated a wreath, played taps, and said a few brief remarks, but we only had a small group to do it, mostly cemetery team members all wearing masks, standing at the distance from one another. We did not have you, and we missed you. As challenging as this pandemic has been, we can be grateful that we are able to join together in honor of those who gave up everything for our benefit. The cost of war is impossible to calculate, and we can never repay the families who lost their loved ones to the horrors of war. The least we can do is memorialize those heroes with some solemn words, laying wreaths, pausing in silence to pray for their souls. And we can be grateful as a nation that America has always had young men and women who have been willing to don the uniform, willing to stand up for our country's ideals, willing to risk their own futures so that the rest of us could be secure in our freedoms. The National Cemetery Administration and Memorial Day has had their origins in time, our nation's darkest days. In 1862, the second year of the Civil War, Congress authorized President Lincoln to purchase grounds for the use of national cemeteries. 14 cemeteries were established that year. Lincoln understood that the obligation that America had to those who sacrificed so much during the Civil War to keep this nation united. He spoke of this obligation during his second inaugural address, just weeks before his own death, when he called on the nation to let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish and just lasting peace amongst ourselves and with all nations. By 1870, most recovered Union remains were reburied in 74 national cemeteries established solely for that purpose. Disabled veterans were hired to oversee these sacred grounds, to erect headboards and protected picket fences. This undertaking was the first time the federal government honored its fallen troops' perpetual care in national cemeteries. By this time, a tradition known as Decoration Day featured placing decorations on graves of fallen service members in recognition for the supreme sacrifice. This grew into Memorial Day, which became a federal holiday in 1971, more than a century after the Civil War ended. Traditions that arose from the ashes of the Civil War have grown through the generations, and Memorial Day has long been the most important day for the year. National Cemetery Administration, veteran groups, and members of the public who help fulfill our mission. Without large public ceremonies for Memorial Day over the past 2 years, our ability to recognize our fallen heroes was limited. Thankfully, we are now past that. I want to acknowledge the unwavering dedication and devotion displayed by the staff here at the Los Angeles National Cemetery. Throughout the pandemic, while so many worked from home, these great patriots continued to come here and work to make sure veterans were properly memorialized and laid to rest in the most dignified manner. In keeping all 155 national cemeteries open throughout the pandemic, dedicated NCA team members followed through on our nation's commitment to provide final honors and a dignified resting place for our veterans. Our team members fully know and appreciate what it takes to serve our country every day. They know the cost of freedom paid by nearly 4 million veterans resting in our VA national cemeteries. They understand where they work is a special place, a national shrine that has value not because of the immaculate landscaping or perfect rows of headstones, but because of men and women who have their final rest here. As President Harry Truman once said, our debt to the heroic men and valiant women in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have earned our underlying gratitude. America will never forget their sacrifices. Here today, we pay our respects to those who gave their lives so we can enjoy our lives in freedom and prosperity. Please keep up that respect and gratitude beyond today. One way you can do this is through the National Cemetery Administration's Veterans Legacy Memorial website, VLM as it's called. is a new way NCA uses modern technology to keep alive the legacies of veterans in resting in VA national cemeteries. Every one of these veterans has his or her own webpage through the VLM online memorial, which you can access at the va.gov/remember. We consider VA the future of memorialization. We appreciate you keeping in the legacies of our brave veterans. It's the least we can do for those who gave their lives in defense of our nation and our way of life. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting veterans and their families, and thank you for honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice. May God bless you, our service members, and the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, T-Mac. T-Mac took on a job at a time when we were all facing the pandemic and made sure that this place was always ready, willing, and able to accommodate the families of those resting with us eternally. We are very pleased and honored today to welcome our 33rd Congressional District United States Representative, Congressman Ted Lieu. Congressman Lieu, we thank you for all that you have consistently and effectively accomplished for our veterans in active duty. And we note your staff's untiring efforts for our military and civilian communities. Congressman Ted Lieu.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming to remember and honor those who sacrificed their lives in service of our great nation. I'd like to thank Chaplain Dov Cohen, the chairman of the board of the Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation, as well as John Gutierrez, the vice president of the Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation, and Gail Johnson, who you'll hear after me. She's a Gold Star mother and a board member of the Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation, and to T-Mac Meza, who is doing a terrific job as the director of the Los Angeles National Cemetery. As all of you know, there is a fair amount of bureaucracy in government, and sometimes I like to say that government works at a majestic pace. But when we move, we can do good. And I'm very pleased that the columbarium is now moving to its second phase, which will have an additional 7,000 places for veterans who are cremated for their remains to be here at the Los Angeles National Cemetery. I'm also pleased that this April, President Biden signed into law a military construction and veterans bill that included a number of my priorities, including $483 million nationwide for supportive housing programs for veterans who are homeless, and $598 million Thank you. And $598 million nationwide for programs and services to help prevent veteran suicides. Today we honor all of those who sacrificed their lives, and in particular our World War II veterans and Gold Star families. And as I reflected on World War II, we are seeing the beginnings of some historic parallels. Currently, we now have a land war in Europe, and that was because of an unjustified and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Vladimir Putin launched an invasion of a free and sovereign country. And if you were to read all the press accounts before this invasion, everyone was predicting that Russia would roll into Ukraine and in a matter of days or a matter of weeks, decapitate their leadership, take over Kyiv, install a puppet regime, and make Ukraine part of Russia. That did not happen. Putin failed, and he failed for two reasons. One was the tremendous skill and will of the Ukrainian people. They were fighting for their land, for their loved ones, and for their honor. And the second reason is because of the tremendous support from the United States NATO allies, and democracies around the world. I understand that we have the consulate generals from South Korea and France here today, so thank you for your support. The US military has been training Ukrainians, especially since 2014 after Russia invaded Crimea. The US has also been supplying military aid and equipment to Ukrainians, particularly since 2014. And then we increased the military aid last year as well as this year. And it is because of that tremendous support from US and democracies around the world that Ukraine is going to remain a free, sovereign, and independent nation. That is a monumental achievement that no one had predicted. And now, while Russia has withdrawn from trying to attack Kyiv and take over Ukraine, they are still fighting in the southern parts and eastern parts of Ukraine. I am a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm a great believer in diplomacy and in peace and in making sure we settle things by the pen, not by the sword. My view is the best way to get Vladimir Putin to negotiate seriously at the peace table is to show him that he cannot win militarily in Ukraine. And that is why Congress passed on a bipartisan basis a $40 billion aid package that President Biden recently signed into law that's going to provide military aid, humanitarian assistance, and economic aid to Ukraine. Now, some people have asked, is that a wise use of taxpayers' resources? That is a legitimate question. And my view is that it is a good use of our resources because when you look at what happened in World War II, we see that if you don't stop a dictator, if you appease an authoritarian regime, that they will keep attacking other countries. And if Ukraine were to fall, who would be next? Would it be Poland? Would it be another country? And then we would have to spend even more resources and perhaps have to commit troops in Europe in order to stop additional Russian invasions. And so my view of the best way to honor our World War II veterans is to make sure that another World War does not happen. And the best way to do that is to give the Ukrainians everything they need to defeat Russia and Ukraine. Today we also honor our Gold Star families, and I've had the distinct pleasure of having a Gold Star family member in my office through what's known as the Gold Star Fellowship Program. His name is Ron Reyes Jr. He is actually here today taking pictures that make me look far better than I am. And today I want to discuss his dad. During the Vietnam conflict, there are over 47,000 US combat deaths. Each has a story about his or her service to our country. Today I'd like to tell you the story of one of them, Ron's dad, a Marine who died for his country while serving in Vietnam. Ronald Reyes Sr. was known as Ronnie. He lived in Los Angeles. When he was 16, he met Elaine Martinez. As fate would have it, Ronnie and Elaine were assigned the same locker to share in high school. It didn't take long before they would leave love notes to each other in a locker. That was before the advent of social media and TikTok. Ronnie was planning to be a hairdresser, but he saw the armed services as his avenue to something better, and he also had hoped to marry Elaine. Ronnie's father, Pascal, was an ex-POW in World War II, captured by the Nazis and liberated by General George Patton. Because of his father's military history, Ronnie wanted to leave high school at 17 and enlist in the Marines. After much persistence, Ronnie encouraged and got his parents to let him to sign up. Ronnie joined the Marines in January 1967. He turned 18 while he was at boot camp. Ronnie was soon deployed to Vietnam. He promised Elaine he would come back to her as soon as his tour was over. Not long after, Elaine discovered that she was pregnant, and Ronnie was excited about becoming a father. In Vietnam, Ronnie was a mortarman in the Delta Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. His unit was in heavy battle at Khe Sanh the entire time that he was there. On January 12, 1968, With Ronnie thousands of miles away, Elaine gave birth to their son, Ronald Reyes Jr. His Marine buddies said that Ron Reyes Sr. talked about Elaine and their baby often. A couple months later, on March 30th, Ronnie's battalion had mortars raining down on them. One of Ronnie's friends, Tommy, was hit by a mortar and needed help. Another friend, Pete, went to go help Tommy, and Pete also got hit in the process, and he also got injured. Ron was able to get out and come back with a stretcher, and they put Pete on the stretcher. They were trying to get over a hill to escape, where Ronnie got hit by a mortar and was instantly killed. It was 3 weeks after his 19th birthday. In total, 749 Marines from this 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, are in Washington, D.C. on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. They have the highest casualty rate in Marine Corps history, and that still stands today. Tommy and Pete are alive today, thanks to the heroism of their Marine buddy, Ronnie Reyes Sr. The Reyes family was given the Gold Star designation, an honor bestowed on the families who lost a loved one in service to our country. But that will never make up for Ron Jr. never having known his father, Ron Sr. On this Memorial Day, let's remember all those members of the armed forces who died for this country, and in particular to all our Gold Star families.
Thank you, Congressman Ted Lieu. We're very appreciative today to have Gail Johnson joining us here. She is a Gold Star mother. She is the mother of Specialist Daniel P. Cagle, who was killed in action May 23, 2007. He was with the U.S. Army 3rd Infantry Division, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Gail and her husband, who is now deceased and is also here in our cemetery, were members of our LA National Cemetery Board Foundation. Gail has chaired the Wreaths Across America program, and she just flew in from Spain less than 3 days ago to be with us. Please welcome Gold Star mother and dynamic board member, Gail Johnson.
Thank you, Chaplain Doug. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning here at this national monument that we call the Los Angeles National Cemetery. My grandson Jackson and I were just here on Saturday placing the flags with the Boy Scouts that you see. Aren't they beautiful? And while we were here, we visited some very special veteran graves. My father's buried here. Bosun Mate Ray Johnson, U.S. Navy. My mother's buried here, Lieutenant Doris Johnson. She was a flight nurse in the United States Air Force. And my husband, Captain Andrew Roth, also known as Pop-Pop to Jackson, is also buried here. He was an Army battle surgeon during Vietnam. But today is Memorial Day, the day we honor and we mourn military personnel who died while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. So we also placed a flag at my son's grave. Specialist Daniel Patrick Cagle, who died, killed in action, serving in combat operations in Iraq on May 23, 2007. Daniel was born in Torrance, California on May 20th, 1985. He was a chubby little baby that grew to a giggly preschooler at the El Segundo Air Force Daycare. I really learned of his character, though, when he transitioned to public kindergarten. At that very first parent-teacher conference, I was told by his teacher that he did not color between the lines, and he didn't know how to tie his shoes. So that night, I asked that 5-year-old, "Why aren't you tying your shoes?" Because I knew he knew how to do that. And he said if he tied his shoes, he had to go into the sandbox And he didn't want to leave behind his best friend, Nicholas, who didn't know how to tie his shoes. So him and his mom got together and we bought him Velcro shoes. As he grew up to a lanky teenager, Daniel often would challenge the rules, challenge authority, but he always seemed to have a good explanation as to why. So you can imagine I knew all his teachers and principals on a first-name basis. When Friday rolled around, anywhere from 1 to 3 boys would show up on Friday and come over after school and sometimes stay and not leave until Sunday night. Daniel was extremely bright. He loved to read and watch the History Channel. But he was a typical California kid. He played roller hockey, skateboarding, and he loved to surf. I lost count how many times I spent at that emergency room, either for stitches or broken bones. It's not that he didn't have a fear factor. You go back to that comment about coloring outside the lines, he just pushed himself to the extremes to be better. He also was a very loyal friend with a kind heart. Numerous times, he would come home literally without the shirt on his back because he gave it to a homeless man that he saw on the street or on the bus. So no one was more surprised than me when he enlisted in the U.S. Army, that he referred to as the real military. That came right after his sister Nicole had enlisted in the United States Air Force 6 months prior. He would call when he could, and one time he even bragged that he was the push-up king, taking the hit for the other man in his training squadron. But he said to me, "Mom, what they don't know is all those push-ups are not breaking me. They are just making me stronger." The men loved him and respected him. And so when he was deployed into Iraq in January 2007, he was made team lead as a private, outranking many of the men on his team, outranked him. We were lucky to have Daniel home just 2 weeks before he was killed in action, and he spent special time with each family member and friends, knowing the dangers of Iraq. He told each of us if something should happen to him, we should remember him with laughter, not tears. He even apologized to me, telling me that he had to go back to Iraq because the men there were closer than family. They depended on each other for their very lives. Then he played that Leonard Skinner song, Simple Man. And he told me, that song, that was me and him. That was his way of telling me he was satisfied. And that's when I knew that that baby, that boy, had grown to a man that far exceeded all my expectations. Daniel was killed 3 days just after his 22nd birthday, along with Staff Sergeant Steve Butcher. And one of the men on the squad that night wrote me the following day. Daniel was doing what he did best, lead. He was leading from the front of our team when it happened, and he saved the rest of the team's lives that night by being upfront because he cared too much about the rest of us to let anyone past him. I love and miss him very much. Matt Myers. I love and miss my son very much, and not a day goes by that I don't think of him or expect him to walk through that front door with that big smile, that big bear hug. So we continue to honor him with stories that bring us laughter as he requested us. My faith sustains me. God's got them. I know I'll see him again. So in closing, all I have to say is, rock on, Daniel Cagle. Rock on. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail, for those inspiring words. You are always welcome here at our cemetery. I'd like to ask all the participants in the wreaths program to please go and stand in front of the wreath you are presenting. We have members of the North Valley Military Institute cadets who will be joining you. So please come down and stand in front of your wreath. I will read the names as soon as I see you down there. We're looking for Ronnie Geyer, John Gutierrez, Dr. J. Grossman, Jaquise K. Q. Abraham, Shad Meshad, Tim Shaner, David Canfield, Timok Meza, Mohammed Akbar Khan, Consul General Julie Jeho Beidou, and Freeman Lee, President of the Korean Unification Advisory Council, and the other members of the council. Okay. As I call your name, please turn, face your wreath, and salute. And we will present the wreaths of hope and faith here at our cemetery. First, the Army. Where's Ronnie Geyer? Ronnie Geyer is an Army veteran, an Emmy-winning Vietnam combat photographer and recipient of the Purple Heart, presenting the wreath for the United States Army, Ronnie Geyer. John Gutierrez, whom you heard from a bit ago, is a Marine Corps veteran, although once a Marine we know, always a Marine. He's Vice President of the LA Cemetery Foundation, and he is joined by Sergeant Maximus Gonzalez. Marine Corps wreath by John Gutierrez. The wreath for the United States Navy is being presented today by Navy veteran Dr. Jay Grossman. Dr. Jay is a founder of Homeless Not Toothless Foundation. As a dental surgeon, he and his colleagues have provided more than $8 million in pro bono dental care to veterans, more than 100,000 veterans and those in need. Dr. Jay Grossman, Navy veteran. The Air Force wreath today is being presented by Jacase Q. Abraham. He's an Air Force vet who served in Operation Enduring Freedom, and he's joined by recruit Dixie Quinlunia for the United States Air Force. We have a brand new wreath this year. It's for the Space Force, and it's being presented today by Shad Meshad. Shad is the founder of the National Veterans Foundation. He established the first 100 veterans clinics. Now there are over 300 strong with the VA. And he founded the National Veterans Foundation. He was a true pioneer, and still is, in the field of PTSD before anyone even knew what that was. His organization, National Veterans Foundation, has handled more than 475,000 suicide prevention calls in the past 36 years. He's joined by Abraham Trujillo, Shad Meshad for the Space Force. The wreath for the Coast Guard is being presented by Tim Shaner. Tim is a member of our board here at the cemetery. He's a Coast Guard veteran. He served as commander of the American Legion Hollywood Post 43, and he's joined by Jasmine Alcala for the Coast Guard, Tim Shaner. The Merchant Marine wreath is being presented today by David Canfield. David is a Navy veteran. He served aboard the battleship Iowa, and today he is the Chief Information Officer at the USS Battleship Iowa, accompanied by recruit Cesar Galicia. Let's welcome David Canfield from the Battleship Iowa. The wreath for Memorial Day, as we call the Prisoner of War and Missing in Action wreath, is being presented by our director, Timok Meza. He is an Army veteran. He's a director here in our National Cemetery, and he is accompanied by Sergeant Fritzy Quintana. Timok Meza, the Memorial Day POW MIA wreath. The wreath for the American Muslim Veterans Association is being presented by Mohammed Akbar Khan. I've known Mohammed for a while, and we found there were so many veterans who are Muslims serving in our country on active duty that the organization, the American Muslim Veterans Association, was begun. He is accompanied by recruit Angel Laxquita, Muhammad Akbar Khan, Muslim Veterans Association. The nation of France is represented today by the Consul General Julie de Haut-Bourdeau. She is accompanied by recruit Terry Castro, our ally, the country of France, presented by their Consul General. The country of South Korea is represented today by Freeman Lee, the president of the Korean Unification Advisory Council, accompanied by Ho Jang-un, Commander Jae Cook Wee, Commander Kun Soon Yang, and Steve Cho of the California State Guard, accompanied by Sergeant Nicholas Saucedo. President Freeman Lee, representing the Korean Unification League. Thank you all for joining us today. Please turn and salute your wreath one more time as we acknowledge you. Thank you all for being part of this program. Okay, one of the things that we always look forward to here at the LA National Cemetery, we have a group that you know as Hollywood's own. They're the magnificent women and men musicians of the 300th Army Band under the direction of Chief Warrant Officer 3 Jeff Smith. I'm going to call out the branches of service, and when I do, if you hear the branch in which you serve, please stand and remain standing during the playing of that song. We begin with the 300th Army Band and the U.S. Navy. The United States Air Force. And now the United States Air Force. And the newest, United States Space Force. United States Coast Guard. The United States Army. Thank you, 300th Army Band. Commander Jeff Smith, my mistake at the beginning, not yours. We'd like to call on the North Valley Military Institute. In a moment, I'm going to ask them to retire the flag. But before we do that, I'd like to welcome and acknowledge the people sitting on our dais. When you hear your name, kindly either stand or raise your hand just so we know who you are. And we're going to go through the list. Thank you all for being here. Congressman Ted Lieu. And I'll ask you to hold your applause till the end. Director Timok Meza. Gold Star Mother Gail Johnson. Cemetery Foundation Vice President John Gutierrez. North Valley Military Institute Superintendent Dr. Mark Ryan. David Canfield, Battleship Iowa Chief Information Officer. Freeman Lee, President of the Korea Unification Council. Consul General of France, Julie Deho Bedeau. Dr. Steve Braverman, the Director of the Greater Los Angeles Healthcare System. And Gold Award Girl Scout, who was here last Saturday putting out all these great flags, Jillian Doppelmoore. Also, we have with us Father Gilbert Martinez from St. Mary's, Lisa Crawley, our featured vocalist, Ronnie Geyer, Emmy Vietnam Combat Photographer and Purple Heart recipient, Dr. Jay Grossman, founder of Homeless Not Toothless, Chairman Emeritus Ernest Cowell, who served in both the Army and the Navy in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Chairman Emeritus of our foundation, Glenn Schechter, who brilliantly handled the placement of flags last Saturday and for many years has been very involved in the Scout program with us. Jacques Q. Abraham, Operation Enduring Freedom. Shad Meshad, founder of the National Veterans Foundation. Tim Shaner, Coast Guard and past American Legion commander. Muhammad Akbar Khan, founder of the Muslim American Veterans Association. And Eagle Boy Scouts Edward Stanton and Bailey Vincent, who were here as chairing the program on Saturday. And the Hollywood 300th Army Band. I'd like to invite the North Valley Military Institute cadets to retire the flags, please. Please stand. Please be seated. In addition to those, you know what they say? You know what they say, wait, there's more. While we're waiting, one of our Vietnam veterans lost his sunglasses. If you find a pair of glasses, please bring them up here to the stage so that we can return them to him.
They might not have more. Just keep an eye on them. We're trying to reload them.
Okay. We can see them reloading the cannons as we read. While we're waiting, yes, those are sunglasses that you found. Would you bring them up, please? Thank you. John? I'm going to found the glasses. Here goes.
The flyby's coming about 10. The flyover's coming in about 10 minutes. I didn't know that.
Today, and we may hear more, but we'll see what happens there. I want to thank Nick Pitchell and the Masons who are assisting us with our seating today. Thank our Buffalo Soldiers, August Simeon, Larry Thornton, Vince Hawkins, Todd Laverne, and Ralph Finisterre, and their horses, Houdini Bob, Black Cherry, April, and they're always a big treat here. We want to thank someone else who is here today. Lisa Schwab is the owner of Cantillini's Restaurants, Cantillini Salerno Beach. She was very helpful in our program. We want to thank also Ernest Cowell, Chairman Emeritus, and Board Member Patricia Cowell for making the arrangements. Ernest, as I said, served in the Army and then the Navy in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Today he's 96 and he's our elder statesman. And we have some young teenagers who are Eagle Scouts. Look for them to be very active here in the future. We want to thank North Valley Military Institute for always supporting our programs here. And we wish all of the cadets well in their military careers. Please note, today is the final day of Fleet Week. Fleet Week down in San Pedro used to be Labor Day weekend. And there were destroyers and submarines and the battleship Iowa, which is now a permanent berth museum there. On behalf of David Canfield, our CIO, he has invited you all to come on down and enjoy the final day of Fleet Week. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today. And there will be, adjacent to the Iowa, a Memorial Day ceremony beginning at 5 p.m. to which you're all invited. The address is 250 South Harbor Boulevard, San Pedro. Thank you, David Canfield, for getting up here and being part of our presentation program. I'd like to invite Father Gil Martinez, Muhammad Akbar Khan to join me here at the podium. I'd like you all to remain seated for the benediction. Our clergy and all the clergy who have participated here over the years, we beseech God that our military and their families be kept safe, and that those who recently suffered unimaginable tragedy, the murder of children and teachers in Uvalde, Texas, be comforted and kept in all of our prayers. This, O Lord, we all implore you this day. I thank you for coming. It's truly been my distinct honor to serve as your MC. I'd like to bring back to the podium, actually she's going to do it from over there, Lisa Crowley with our closing song. After she performs Amazing Grace, the 300th Army Band will play for another 20 minutes. I thank you all. I want you to be safe on your way to your next destination. And if you have the time and you're willing to go down to San Pedro, go down and have a great Memorial Day conclusion. Lisa Crowley, please. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for sharing your day with us. Remember all of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And we look forward to having you back here many times in the future. Now the 300th Army Band will continue playing as you're leaving the property. Thank you. Drive safely.